Good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ingrid Ilinka. I'm the Provost and Chief Academic Officer and Vice President of Academic Affairs. And I would like to give a warm welcome to everyone in attendance this morning, our guests online, and those here with us, including parents, alumni, trustees, faculty, and students. We have here President Lofi and Mrs. Gail Stubbs, Thad Stubbs, Zach Stubbs, and Christy Kafer, and Beth Howard McClellan. So welcome, everyone. We have an incredible day of learning from one another with a wonderful schedule of student presenters, and it will begin shortly. However, we would like to pause here and open with a special time of recognizing an incredible family who, for many years, has supported our Undergraduate Scholars Forum. Here to recognize that family and pay tribute to the late Dr. David Stubb is President and Chief Transformation Officer Don Lofi.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to add my special welcome to the family and friends today of Dr. Stubbs, all of you. It's a very good day today, but also a day we need to think and pause, and I want to give some brief remarks with respect to that. Thank you, Dr. Linka. Our Westminster community, and for our community today, it is a special day for our students, but this year also brings a time of sadness and loss. Many of you already know that Dr. David Stubbs, esteemed alumnus of Westminster College, passed away this past February. His loss is felt deeply by his family members, by many of us in the Westminster community who knew and cared deeply about Dr. Stubbs. Many of us were fortunate to know him, his kind and generous heart, and loyalty to Westminster College, along with his desire to support advancing academic scholarship and the curiosity of learning. Dr. Stubbs attended Westminster College, graduating in 1968, where he was also a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. After graduating, Dr. Stubbs went to medical school at the University of Missouri, Columbia, where he excelled, becoming the first fellow in vascular surgery, leading to an outstanding career as a vascular surgeon. During his second year at Missouri, he received the United States Air Force National Research Award for the original research in aerospace medicine. Dr. Stubbs later became the chair of the Department of Surgery in Central Iowa, where he notably served in many capacities, including on the Medical Executive Committee, the Surgery Department, and teaching service. He served on the board for the Central Iowa Hospital Corporation Board of Directors, becoming a permanent member of the board, recognized for his distinguished dedication and service to many. Dr. Stubbs is truly a scholar, pushing the boundaries of research, teaching, and service. His strong academic foundations, commitment to a life of service, significance, and success led to his outstanding achievements in the world of healthcare and many other endeavors, personal and professional. Dr. Stubbs was especially proud of the fact that each of his children were graduates of Westminster College. Many of you over the years have met these fine family members who attended this very forum over the past several years. Would the Stubbs family members please stand and be recognized by all of us? For those of you who might not know the Stubbs family members, I'd like to talk about their names. Mrs. Gail Stubbs, Thad Stubbs, class of 1999, Courtney Stubbs Swan, class of 2001, Zach Stubbs, class of 2007, as well as Becca Stubbs, class of 2008. And if some of you know, Becca was the presenter of our 2002, sharing her love of sciences with us as a whole when she was doing research at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. I was there at that presentation, and also along with Dr. Stubbs, where I met the Stubbs family, and it was truly a good day. Dr. Stubbs was a dedicated doctor and surgeon who achieved the Lifetime Leadership Award at Westminster, where he stated how his professors and time at Westminster influenced his journey, and I quote him here, I credit my professors, Dr. Fickus, Williams, Schultz, Parrish, and Huntley, for their teaching, inspiration, and support. These professors and the Westminster College experience have been the foundation of my academic and surgical career, as well as my personal endeavors and support. Dr. Stubbs was strongly influenced of the faculty and learning at Westminster and the Westminster community. He turned his love of learning into a legacy of ongoing support through the establishment of the Stubbs Family Endowment, supporting this very forum, which he started with his son Thad, Beth Howard, Clellan, another outstanding graduate of Westminster, class of 2001. The entire Stubbs family are now part of this endowment, supporting the awards, which will be shared later this morning, for outstanding academic work by our students. And at this time, we'd like to present Mrs. Stubbs and her family with a small token of our deep appreciation and acknowledgement of the life and legacy of Dr. David Stubbs. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your generosity and support of this institution, and our sincere condolences to your family during this time, and we look forward to a very nice, good day with you. Would you please come forward, Mrs. Stubbs? And now I'd like to introduce Dad Stubbs, again a 1999 graduate of Westminster College. And Dad's going to come forward to speak some words about his father and also some other personal thoughts. Dad?
I want to thank President Lofi and the college for the opportunity to share a little bit about my father this morning. I also want to thank Doctors Mary Majerus and Carolyn Perry Hunt, the Teaching and Learning Committee, as well as countless others that help us make this day possible each year. It means more to my family than you know. My father, David, unfortunately passed away this winter. He was a very proud graduate of the college, as Dr. Lofi said. He loved Westminster and the Undergraduate Scholars Forum. He was a complicated, interesting, and wonderful man. My father was very careful about the organizations that he contributed to. You should see frugal in that. But he loved the idea of the forum. Because all of his children also graduated from Westminster, he convinced myself, Beth Howard, and my siblings to give to the endowment, and it's been a labor of love for our family ever since. I won't take terribly long, but I'd like to share a few things about my father that I think fit the spirit of the forum, things that shed light on who he was personally and why he appreciated the mission of the college. They are also things that I think he might mention if he were here. Number 1, labor omnia vincit. Number 2, never stop questioning. Number 3, the wisdom of Mark Twain. Number 4, don't be afraid of the Queen of Spades. Number one, labor omnia vincit is a nod to my dad's time at Westminster and his minor fascination with Latin. He studied it while majoring in biology. He would call it pre-med, but it was biology, where he would occasionally have me quiz him on his vocabulary, which I did with a teenage eye roll often. Labor omnia vincit means work conquers all, and it encapsulates how many people that knew him well would probably describe his attitude. If anything, my father was a hard worker, very hard. He would usually be at work by the time I woke around 7 a.m., and he would often still be at the hospital until after I'd gone to bed. Almost every day of the week, it seemed, when I was a child. He was routinely on call, and those calls would come every day and every night. It didn't matter what time. He believed that his job was important, that he had an important purpose, and that it was worthy of doing greatly, not well. If he were here, I hope that he would also tell you that he was able to work the hours that he did and accomplish the things that he was able to because of my stepmother, Gail. She seemingly took care of almost everything else in our lives and home. It really was their career and their accomplishments. One of the memories of my dad that makes me laugh was actually when he was in the hospital, when he was near the end with cancer. My stepmother came to the hospital to stay with him overnight, as she did almost every night. She came in late one afternoon and he wasn't in his room. In a minor panic, she asked the nurses where he was and then called him. My father, imagine him in his little hospital gown, attached to his IV on wheels, waddled his way down the hall, took the elevator, and went to his office in the hospital to work. When I heard about it, I laughed, and I wasn't actually that surprised. During his career, my father was often rated by his patients the top doctor in his hospital's entire system and one of the top doctors in the nation based on patient satisfaction, a fact that I did not know until after he had passed. He didn't talk about his accomplishments or awards often, if ever, but I hope that you and he will indulge me and allow his proud kids to do so. The first thing that my father would probably tell you is that without hard work, dream and ambitions are only that. Labor omnia vincit. The second thing that I think my father might share with you is that Westminster was not the beginning of your education, and it should not be the end. It may or may not be the end of your formal education, but should be a launching point for a lifetime of learning. Westminster, if you let it, will teach you to think, be curious, and channel your passion. My dad had an amazing desire to learn. He believed that everyone should continue learning and teaching. Dad thought that learning should inspire action. It should be used and it should be shared. Dad graduated from Westminster in 1968. He went to medical school at MU, as Dr. Lofi stated. Vascular surgery was a very new medical specialty in the country, and he decided that that's what he wanted to do. Mizzou did not have a program for that. So his program was designed largely by himself and the faculty as he went along. They learned and taught together. He went on to teach surgery at the university and later was very involved with the residency programs at a few different hospitals over his career. He enjoyed teaching, sharing his experience and urging his fellow doctors, nurses, and staff to continue learning, publishing, and collaborating. He was voted Teacher of the Year by his residents 3 times. Another fact that I did not learn until this year. He just didn't often talk about things like that. My family has a lake house in southern Iowa. We spend a lot of time there when it's warm enough. He and Gail bought the house when he retired from his private practice. His retirement only lasted a few months. One of his greatest desires was to be useful and to work. And so he took a job as a physician liaison at his hospital, Methodist Medical Center in Des Moines, Iowa. My father jokingly described his position in hospital administration as working for the dark side. When he would slow down enough to go back to the lake house, you could usually find him working on the deck, the dock, his garden, or a myriad of other projects. There was always something to do. Almost always working, but he would stop to read. He loved to read, and he loved to learn. He would often read multiple books at once, a habit that I never understood or took up. I always had to focus on one at a time. His reading subjects were so broad and so deep. I remember one particular weekend a few years ago when he was reading 3 books. It just struck me based on the subjects. The first was about astronomy. He loved science and space. The second was a biography of an obscure Civil War general that I had never heard of, and I love to study history. And the third was a history of the English language. A history of the English language. The third thought that I think my father might share with you would be the wisdom of Mark Twain. Dad loved Twain's sense of humor, his turn on words, and common sense. I think it also appealed to his growing up in Cape Girardeau on the Mississippi River. The quote, that will be behind me, I hope. Hung in his office at the hospital. Always do right. This will gratify some people and astonish the rest. Dad believed that he had an obligation to share his talent and experience to help people. He believed medical care wasn't just for the people who could afford it. He would bring home vegetables from farmers, signed footballs from coaches, and other gifts, several of these from patients who had no insurance or couldn't pay for care. Later, when his small group of doctors in his private practice was joined with a large clinic, this practice wasn't allowed, to no surprise. Dad would do the surgeries that others didn't want to do, the ones that took too long, had a poor chance of success, or were too expensive for insurance to deem financially prudent. He wouldn't hesitate to do the right thing if it was the right thing for the patient. I don't ever remember Dad preaching to us about doing the right thing, but looking back, we witnessed how he lived it. I think that he would encourage you to do the same. He made mistakes, lots of them. I do, and you do too. But I think that he would tell you if you have a decision to make, you should think of it initially through the filter of, what's the right thing to do? Always do right. This will gratify some people, and it will astonish the rest. Lastly, don't be afraid of the Queen of Spades. I come from a very competitive family. We used to and still do play a lot of games when we get together. A family favorite is spoons, which under most circumstances is a fairly mundane children's game. But at our house, it could turn aggressive, to put it mildly. Another family favorite was the game Hearts. How many of you played the card game Hearts? Well, the point is to take as few points as possible. The Queen of Spades is by far the worst card to get, and it is the most points. When I was a child, I was afraid of being dealt the Queen of Spades, and I would get it out of my hand as quickly as possible. I didn't want to get stuck with it. Not my father. If he had the queen and or several other hearts, he would try to take all of the points. This is a really risky move called shooting the moon. When someone shoots the moon, they take all of the points. They get 0, and every other player gets 26. It totally changes the game. There was a huge risk involved, but even bigger rewards. My father would often say to us, the point of any game is to win. He was playing to win the game, and he was not afraid to lose. If he failed to shoot the moon, he would probably lose badly. It didn't matter to him how badly he lost. He didn't play for second, and he wasn't afraid to take a calculated risk. This is how he lived his life. Dad taught us that if you dare greatly, you are going to fail, and you are going to fail often. You cannot let that stop you, no matter how embarrassing it might be. One of the greatest lessons that I learned from my father was not to be afraid of the Queen of Spades. I'd like to close with the photo behind me. It's one of my most valued possessions. To the world, it is a piece of PVC pipe. It was probably used for some project at our house and put aside in case we needed it later. When I was very young, I played with it all over the yard for hours and days. Usually imagined it as a sword or a gun or some other prop. I was so young that I barely remember it, actually. About 10 years ago, when I had some serious medical problems, my dad and stepmother would constantly travel to Missouri, and they would help manage my care in the hospital because I wasn't able. When my father was able to go back home, he mounted that pipe to a part of a willow tree that had blown over at the lake house. He sanded it, lacquered it, had the plate at the bottom made. It says, "Imagine no limitations on what you can be, have, or do. Dad." I wish that my father was here. He would really enjoy seeing your projects. He really would. Hearing your presentations and meeting you all. Dad would be gratified to know that the endowment is still rewarding your excellence. He loved that the Undergraduate Scholars Forum was about. If he was here and you forced him to speak, I think that he would encourage you to find your purpose, to dream huge, not big. Set unrealistic goals and work and work and work to make them happen. Westminster is a special place, and my family thanks you for letting us share him with you.
Thank you, Thad, for your words, and thank you again to the entire Stubbs family. Good morning. My name is Dr. Callie Wright-Smith. I'm very pleased to introduce this year's keynote speaker, Ayush Manandar, class of 2017. Ayush is a data and policy analyst at Acumen LLC, the Sphere Institute. At Acumen, Ayush works with U.S. government agencies, including the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, and the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission to advance research and data-driven answers on U.S. healthcare policy. At Westminster, Ayush was truly a standout student. In 2013, Ayush came to Westminster from Nepal. I was fortunate to meet Ayush in his first class at Westminster, which was also my first class as a professor at Westminster. So I like that. I always said that we went to college together. He just was the only one of us that graduated and moved on. During the next 4 years, I got to witness Ayush excel in countless ways without ever losing his humility, kindness, or desire to keep growing as a person. Ayush was impressive in the classroom, graduating summa cum laude with degrees in transnational studies and political economy. Additionally, he was involved all over campus. A partial list of his involvement includes co-founding the Global Development and Progress Club and serving as editor-in-chief and co-creator of the Westminster Journal for Global Progress. He also served in student governments, campus activities board, student ambassadors, and he was a member of the honors program. Today is also a lovely full circle moment. As we were talking about earlier, I can remember Ayush presenting at the Undergraduate Scholars Forum as a student many years ago. After graduation, Ayush became my colleague as he worked at Westminster for a year as the Intercultural Engagement Fellow, before moving on to the McCourt School of Public Policy at Georgetown University. While working toward his degree, he was an editor of the Georgetown Public Policy Review and interned at the World Resources Institute. After graduating from Georgetown with a Master in Public Policy in 2020, Ayush worked as an assistant to the ambassador at the Embassy of Nepal in Washington, D.C. Ayush has been working at Acumen LLC, the Sphere Institute, since the fall of 2021. It is no surprise to me that Ayush has found success in a field that lets him combine his passion for public policy and research in order to promote positive social change, as he's always pursued a path of critical exploration and lifelong learning. We are so fortunate and proud to welcome back to campus our keynote speaker, Ayush Manandar.
All right.
Well, hello, Westminster. Thank you so much, Dr. Wright-Smith, for your very gracious introduction and for all that you do for students like myself. I also want to thank the Undergraduate Scholars Forum Committee, and more importantly, I want to thank the students, because all this would not be possible without you guys here. So today I'm talking about crafting public policy, bridging data analysis and storytelling. I've divided this presentation into 3 parts. The first thing I'll do is talk about what I do. I work in health policy, so I'll introduce you to health policy. And then I'll also introduce you to Medicare, which forms a huge part of the American healthcare system. Then I'll share some data on Medicare and use that data to stress upon why asking good questions about Medicare is vital. And finally, I'll be talking about crafting policy, about bridging data analysis and storytelling, and also share some lessons that I've learned at Westminster that helped me do just that. So let's start with the first part, healthcare policy and Medicare. I want to start this part by sharing a story. I want to take you guys back to 1929 when the Great Depression struck the United States. It was during the Great Depression that the economy collapsed for this country. As the headline goes, worst stock crash stemmed by banks. Now, in events like this, there are always going to be people who are more vulnerable than others. And one of those groups included the elderly. Now, when you think of the elderly, you can think of people who are 65 above, some of your parents' age, some of your grandparents' age. And what happened there with the elderly people was a lot of them had retired, a lot of them lost their jobs, were laid off. A lot of them had invested, but all their investments were wiped out because the market had crashed, right? So the other thing about the elderly population is that they're also more vulnerable to being sick. They're also more vulnerable to potentially being disabled. So they wanted to go to a doctor, but they couldn't afford to go to a doctor. They wanted to get medicine, but they couldn't afford to get that medicine because they had no savings, they had no money. And in many ways, that's what healthcare policy is all about tackling. Health policy is about the decisions, plans, and actions that are undertaken to achieve specific healthcare goals within a community, responsive to the health needs of all its members. That's what health policy essentially is. Now, going on with the theme of the Great Depression, the other thing that happened during the Great Depression was a lot of people were growing up at that time, a lot of people were of working age at that time. So when they grew up, they recognized that such an event should not happen again. And if it were to happen again, we need to make sure that the vulnerable around us are going to be protected. We need to make sure that the elderly were going to be protected. And one of those people advocating for just that was Harry Truman. This picture, by the way, was when he was on his way to Fulton, Missouri. I just wanted to mention that. So Harry Truman tried advancing healthcare policy, tried advancing providing healthcare to everyday Americans. Now, he was not able to pass a bill in Congress, but he did pass the baton to Lyndon Johnson. Here the headline goes, Lyndon Johnson healthcare program gives Medicare priority. What was Medicare going to be? Medicare was going to be a national health program, including healthcare for the aged and needy children. That was what Medicare was going to be. And as Johnson was trying to pass this healthcare bill, pass Medicare, he's even quoted saying in his Texan accent, "By God, you can't treat grandma this way. She's entitled." And he said that because he grew up during the Depression, so he knew the struggles of everyday elderly people. And in 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson managed to pass the Medicare bill into law. And when he signed that bill, he did not sign it in Washington, D.C., a building in Washington, D.C. He did not sign it at the White House. He signed it in Missouri. He signed it at the Truman Library in Missouri. And if you look at this picture on the right-hand side, the two people happen to be former President Truman and former First Lady Bess Truman. And when he was speaking to reporters that day, you know what he said? He said, I may have passed this bill, but Harry Truman is the true father of Medicare. That's what he said. So what is Medicare? Medicare is a health insurance program for those above the age of 65. And it now includes care for the disabled, those who have kidney failure, and those who have ALS. So that's what Medicare is. So now that you know what Medicare is, I'll share some data on Medicare and use that data to point out why asking the right questions about Medicare is important. So a year after Lyndon Johnson signed Medicare into law, 19 million Americans had enrolled into the program. In the year 2000, that was 39 million. In the year 2010, it was 47 million. And in 2022, the total enrollment adds up to 65 million Americans. That's like 1/5 of the American population. So a lot of people's lives at stake here. And because a lot of people are enrolled into Medicare, we've been spending a lot of money on it as well. In 1972, 3% of our federal funding was going into Medicare. In 2022, that went up to 12%. And in 2053, it's expected to go up to 18%. So we are, again, talking about not just a lot of lives, but a lot of money as well. So to reiterate, 65 million Americans, 12% of our federal spending, translating to about $950 billion. And because a lot of money is at stake, 65 million Americans, right, 12% of funding, because a lot of funding is at stake, asking the right questions about Medicare is vital. And that's what we do at my work. Questions like, how can quality of care be assessed? Or, how can access of care be analyzed? If someone is enrolled into Medicare, they deserve to get good care. If they want an appointment at a hospital, they need to be able to get that appointment in an appropriate time at the hospital convenient to them. And that's what we ask. Now, another fact about Medicare is that the Medicare program has two options you can choose from when you're enrolled: Original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. So we can also ask, what are the characteristics of people signing up for different options under Medicare? What are the demographics like? Are they in urban areas? Are they in rural areas? What are their races? Do people of certain demographics prefer one option over the other? Likewise, we are also talking about $950 billion worth of funding here, and that is a lot of money. So there's every chance that there are fraudulent practices that might happen. So we also ask, how can fraudulent practices be uncovered so that Medicare can be made both effective and efficient? So we work with our clients in answering these questions, and those answers then form a foundation for new public policy. So that is how the process sort of works out. Now you might be wondering, where does crafting policy, where does the bridging of data analysis and storytelling come about here? And I'll tell you just that in this part, alongside sharing some lessons I learned at Westminster that helped me do just that. Now, when I think of data analysis research, when I think of creating public policy through research, I think of Legos. You know the Lego bricks, the toys, right? Because what do you do when you first start building a Lego model? You first start collecting the bricks, right? And when you build that Lego model, you need to know what bricks you're collecting. And it's the same with data analysis for research too. You need to know what data you are gathering. You need to essentially understand the theory behind the subjects that you're studying to know what data you're going to gather. Otherwise, you're going to be blindsided, right? So, and that's where my first lesson comes about too. Delve into and master the content of your subjects and majors. Because if you're not going to do that, you will not know what data to gather. And I talk about this in relation to data analysis, but I think this lesson is true for whatever field you're going to be in. You got to be able to master the content of what you are studying. Once you do that, when you're building a Lego model, right, you start categorizing what parts you need. You're going to separate the Lego bricks. Say if you're building a Lego model home, you're going to start separating the Lego bricks that you need to build a roof versus the Lego bricks you need to build a garden from the Lego bricks that you're going to have as miniature figures, right? And in essence, that's what data analysis involves as well, because when you're collecting data in the real world, rarely is that data clean. It has a ton of unimportant information. So you need to be able to clean that up, to just summarize it to the parts you need. And then you can start using analysis. You can use econometrics, statistics, calculus to start analyzing that data. And the lesson related to this is tackle the things that makes you anxious. And I say this because when I was at Westminster, classes like calculus, classes like research methods in economics made me very anxious, right? And I even tried finding ways to see if I can skip them, but I realized I couldn't. And I took it, and I worked hard for those classes, and I did well, and it amazes me that those skills I use today for my job. The very skills that would have made me anxious many years ago, I use it now. So tackle the things that give you anxiety. And this applies not just for data, I think this applies to anything else in life too. The final thing is storytelling and writing. So once you are done, building your Lego model, you'll realize that that Lego model is telling you a story, right? That Lego model, so a Lego model home might be telling a different story to a Lego model that's an Iron Man mask, right? Those are two different stories. And it's the same with data analysis research too. In fact, that is where data analysis merges with storytelling. Because a lot of people get done with the first two steps, they have the results, they have the numbers. But a lot of people in your audience may not understand data, may not understand intricate numbers, but they will understand stories. And you need to understand that every data point that you have represents a story. And you should be able to merge those two things. And my third lesson related to that is be attentive to all requisite courses to combine the sciences with the liberal arts, because that's where the magic happens, the merging of the sciences with the liberal arts. I have expository writing here as an example, and Dr. Levine is here, and Dr. Levine does not know the story. So when I was about to take expository writing my senior year, I did not want to take expository writing my senior year. And I think I even went to Dean Perry asking, hey, can I skip this course? And she said, no. And I didn't want to take it because, I thought maybe I should take more political science or economics courses instead. I had taken a lot of writing intensive courses, and I was already taking Caribbean literature that semester with Dr. Levine. And I knew it was going to be a tough class too, but I had to take it. And I'm being very honest here, expository writing has helped me so much. And it helps me in my job today. It helped me at Georgetown University. It helped me when I was writing speeches at the Embassy of Nepal. And it was a difficult class. And I remember, every other week I would be in Dr. Levine's office trying to figure out how I can improve my writing. And it helped me a lot. It dramatically helped improve my writing. And I use it now. I use those skills now. And that's why you have to be attentive to all your requisite courses to combine the sciences with the liberal arts. Because honestly, that's where you can stand out. That's where the magic happens. And I think at Westminster, you're perfectly situated to learn how to combine the sciences with the liberal arts. So that's my third lesson. My fourth lesson is what you work on today will help you tomorrow, so raise your hands, get involved, and ask for help when you need it. The picture on the left is from my freshman year. The one in the middle is from when I was presenting for USF in 2017, and the last one is from my graduation. In all these instances, I quickly learned that I had to raise my hands. I had to make sure I was trying to answer the questions. And you might be wrong when you attempt in doing that, but you will learn new things when you try doing this. And I want you to get involved. Get involved in your class, get involved outside your class. And during this process of raising your hand and getting involved, don't forget to ask for help when you need it. When we were doing events, I remember a lot of professors, even during the weekends, would drive from Jefferson City, from Columbia, to come help out our events during the weekends. I remember going to office hours, and trying to discuss what my career was going to be like. And I would stay there for hours trying to figure things out, and my professors, your professors now, would stay there with me and try figuring things out. And you might think this is available in a lot of other universities, and I'll tell you, especially in big universities, you are not going to get that attention. You just aren't. So, there's this quote from Harry Potter, Dumbledore saying, "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." Well, I think help will always be given at Westminster to those who ask for it. So seek for help when you need it. My last advice lesson is this. When you pass through the columns once again, trust the work you have done at Westminster. The picture on the left here is from my time at Georgetown University. The one on the right is from when I was working at the Embassy of Nepal. I'm, by the way, the guy on the back, not the guy in the front. And, during those times, especially when I had just left Westminster, I was eager, even anxious, about whether I was going to be able to contribute to the outside world and do well beyond the columns. And I know that sentiment was true for many of my friends as well. I say this with the knowledge that many of you will be graduating soon, going to graduate school, law school, starting new jobs, looking for jobs, doing internships, probably mulling over the same thoughts we had in 2017. As you start your new journey, as you cross that threshold signified by the columns, I want you to remember to trust the work that you did at Westminster. Trust the research, trust that effort you've put in, that all of that will add up here. Trust the knowledge that you've gained will add up. Continue putting in that effort, be patient, and know that you will and can contribute both within and beyond the columns. It has in many ways come true for me and my friends, even as we continue still persevering and contributing further. And I trust that it will come true for you as well. So with that, thank you so much, Westminster, for this wonderful opportunity.
We have time for a couple of questions, if anybody has any questions for Ayush. Before I let him just sit down and relax.
Yes.
What was it like being the AG ambassador?
It was, I learned a lot. I think I realized how politics gets played in the real world, right? It was an amazing experience learning. I worked under two different ambassadors, and I quickly realized that they hold the same position, but they have completely different personalities. So in many ways, I realized I wasn't just working for the ambassador, I was working for the personality, right? So I think that's one lesson I learned quickly. The other thing I realized was how much in-person interaction is important, because I worked there when COVID-19 was at its peak, and in-person interactions were limited, but I realized that in-person interaction is where you get things done. In-person interactions are where you make an impression on people. And I had the opportunity to learn that from like senior diplomats there who stressed upon the importance of in-person interaction. So I think those two things were things that I learned quickly there. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes, ma'am.
What was the transition from Westminster to Georgetown like?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, when I started off at Georgetown, I quickly realized I was sitting with students from Brown, from Harvard, from big universities who were all hardworking people. And initially I was kind of intimidated, and then I did my readings and it was okay, and I quickly realized, hey, I can do this. So I was initially anxious, but what I did was continue what I did at Westminster. And trust that, what I'd gained at Westminster was going to be useful, and trust that my way of studying, way of getting involved, that same formula was going to work well at Georgetown too. And it worked out well. So I would advise you to do just that. Just trust that what you've studied here is going to add up. Trust the formula that you're applying here. If it's working here, it'll work outside too. So that's what I think that my experience was.
Time for one more.
Can you repeat the part about doing your readings?
Yes.
How important that is?
Yeah. I actually have a story from Dr. Wright-Smith's. So this was my first class. This was one of my first classes at Westminster, my first class with Dr. Wright-Smith. And it was an Intro to International Politics class. And, I was a freshman, I go into the class, and I realized I did not know anything. It felt like I'd just gotten out of bed, and I was in the middle of a national security briefing. That's how it felt like. And I was really anxious, and a lot of them were like, sophomores taking that class, and they knew so much. And I go to Dr. Wright-Smith's office and tell her, should I drop this class? Should I take Intro to Political Science instead? And she was like, it's not a requisite. You can take Intro to International Politics. And I was still very anxious about things. And, I was telling her I can't figure things out. People know a lot more. And then she asked me, have you read the book? And I said, no. And then she goes, read the book for the next class and see how you feel. And then I read the book and everything worked out. So read your book, read the papers that they assign you because they are helpful. All right? That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayush. My name is Dr. David Jones, Professor of Psychology and Chief Accreditation Officer, and I am pleased to introduce Ms. Lauren Halamichek, class of 2024, to deliver the opening student presentation at the Undergraduate Scholars Forum. Lauren is a senior, majoring in both psychology and business communication, and is planning a career in human relations. She is a member of Kappa Alpha Theta and has been extremely active across campus as a member of the women's soccer and golf teams, as a member of the Psi Chi and Alpha Chi honor societies, and as a member of the Student Ambassadors and Blue Blazers. During the last year, Lauren completed a senior thesis project in psychology under the supervision of Dr. Ryan Bruner and myself. This is not an easy thing to do at all, but Lauren did a magnificent job, and you'll see the results of that project today. Recently, Lauren presented her senior thesis project at the Alpha Chi National Convention in Birmingham, Alabama, and won the Mary Water Street Prize in Psychology for the best convention presentation. She's the 6th Westminster student to win a convention presentation prize and the first since 2016. The last member of the Missouri Delta chapter of Alpha Chi to win a convention presentation award was someone named Ayush Manandhar. So we are thrilled to have the most recent winners together in the same room today. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Lauren Halamachek.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Halmachek, and I'm presenting my senior thesis, which is over self-efficacy and presentation anxiety. I'm not sure I know how this works. So presentation anxiety is a fear that many people have around the world, whether this is in the workplace, an educational setting, or if you're like me presenting at the Undergraduate Scholars Forum right now. So since it is such a widespread fear, it is important that we identify ways in which self-efficacy can be increased so that presentation anxiety can be decreased. Research has shown that verbal persuasion, role modeling, and mentor programs have all individually helped increase levels of self-efficacy to decrease anxiety levels. However, there's been a lack of research in which all three of these factors have been combined into one, which is what I did my experiment on. But first, let's look at past research that supported my experiment. So a large number of people around the world truly struggle with presentation anxiety, which makes it difficult for them to articulate their thoughts and ideas in front of a group of people or even sometimes just an individual person. This can be extremely prominent in the workplace. Luckily, research has shown that anxiety levels can be reduced once self-efficacy levels are increased. Many people suffer from low self-efficacy, which can cause these individuals to have an increased anxiety level when they are approached with a new task or duty that they are not familiar with. In the workplace, it is especially important that individuals have high levels of self-efficacy because you are often given a new project or task by your boss and you're expected to complete it efficiently and effectively. So it is important that you are able to believe in yourself. One way that individuals can help improve their levels of self-efficacy is through verbal persuasion. Depending on the way that sentences or words are used or phrased, individuals can help their employees provide them with a sense of fulfillment and help them increase their self-efficacy levels and help them believe that they can complete the task at hand. However, verbal persuasion is not the only way that can help increase self-efficacy. There's also role modeling. One of the easiest ways to learn a new task is by watching another individual do it first. Individuals are able to watch the steps that are taken from one person and then repeat them when they are given the same task. One place where both verbal persuasion and role modeling could be combined into one is in a mentor program. Mentoring can be seen in a variety of different settings, such as the workplace, an educational setting, or even just when someone is learning to try a new thing and they need a mentor to guide them. Verbal persuasion and role modeling could be combined into a mentor program to help increase self-efficacy all at one time. So now we're going to get into my experiment. So previous research has shown that verbal persuasion, role modeling, and mentor programs have all separately helped increase levels of self-efficacy and decrease levels of presentation anxiety. However, there has been a lack of research, like I said, when all three of these factors are combined, which gets into my hypotheses. So my first hypothesis was that participants who participated in both the verbal persuasion and role modeling group would have higher self-efficacy levels than the participants in only the verbal persuasion group and the control group. My second hypothesis was that participants who received both verbal persuasion and role modeling would have more reduced anxiety than the participants in the other two groups. And my third hypothesis was that participants who received both verbal persuasion and role modeling would display and report having better presentation skills than the participants in the other two groups. So now I'm going to talk about how I ran this experiment, starting out with my participants. So I had 26 participants, 18 women and 8 men, all from Westminster College. Thank you guys in the crowd. All ranging from ages 18 to 23 years of age. They were involved in a variety of different clubs, organizations, interests, and majors on campus, and I collected these students by sending out text messages, emails, and I even asked my professors to post the link to my experiment on their Canvas pages as well. So prior to conducting the study, a lot of materials were needed. I first created a Google document survey to send out to my participants to see what dates and times they were available for the in-person portion of my experiment. I created an informed consent, a debriefing, and I also created a mentor program. So Individuals in the verbal persuasion and role modeling group received videos of a role model verbally persuading them that they could present well and also demonstrating good presentation skills. In the verbal persuasion group, individuals received the same tips and tricks on how to present well and also verbal persuasion. However, they did not receive a video demonstrating how to present well. I also identified a blind confederate for the rubric grading portion of my experiment. I generated 52 ChatGPT speeches for the in-person portion of my experiment. I found a general self-efficacy questionnaire, created a presentation anxiety questionnaire, and a presentation rubric. So since there were a lot of materials, I bet you could assume that my procedure was pretty complex, and it was. Participants first receive a link to sign up for my experiment, where they signed the informed consent and filled out dates and times that they were available. The experiment started with a general self-efficacy and presentation anxiety questionnaire. After that, they received one of the ChatGPT speeches, which were randomly distributed, which regarded any type of topic such as sports, space, just anything you can think of. And then they were given 7 minutes to memorize the speech, although this did not need to be repeated verbatim. This was kind of just 7 minutes to get them familiar with what they would be speaking about. After the 7 minutes were up, I collected all of the speeches, and I randomly assigned people to go to the front of the classroom and present, and then I gave their speeches back. I just took them away so that no one could memorize longer than another person. While they were presenting, there was a blind confederate in the back of the classroom where they were filling out a presentation rubric based on how the presenters did. And after the presenter was done presenting, they sat down and graded themselves on the same presentation rubric. So after all participants had gone, after the first initial meeting, I told them to be on the lookout for emails from me over the next 5 days, although not everyone was going to get an email, but just to be on the lookout for that. After the initial meeting, I went back to my dorm room and I randomly assigned all participants into 3 different groups. So there was a role modeling and verbal persuasion group, an only verbal persuasion group, and a control group. And so after that, the role modeling and verbal persuasion group, as well as the only verbal persuasion group, received videos over the next 5 days, while the control group did not receive anything from me. On the 5th day, I sent all participants a new Google document survey for them to fill out for dates and times available for the final portion of my in-person part of the experiment. Once we met again, they filled out the same general self-efficacy and presentation anxiety questionnaires. The participants were given 7 more minutes to, again, memorize a new speech and then present. The blind confederate graded them on the presentation rubric, the participants graded themselves, and then they were debriefed and dismissed. So to discover the results of my experiment, I ran a repeated measures ANOVA to see the impact that the manipulation had in regards to self-efficacy levels, presentation anxiety levels, and presentation skills from time 1 to time 2. And first we will look at the self-efficacy and presentation anxiety levels from time 1 to time 2. So time 1 is blue and time 2 is orange. As you can see, there was no statistically significant self-reported presentation anxiety or self-efficacy differences among groups. So this would prove that my first and second hypotheses were not supported. Now we will be getting into my third hypothesis, which is a bit more interesting, which was that the participants in the verbal persuasion and role modeling group would report and display better presentation skills than the other 2 groups. So based on the data shown here, there was no statistically significant differences among groups in regards to the nonverbal and verbal skills ratings based on the participants' self-reports from time 1 to time 2. However, so this does not support the portion of my third hypothesis in which they would report better presentation skills at time 2 compared to time 1. However, the third hypothesis can be partially supported when we look at the data from the blind confederate of my experiment. So as shown in this table, you can see that there was statistically significant differences among the nonverbal skills from time 1 to time 2. And along with this table shows that there was also a significant difference in the verbal skills ratings from time 1 to time 2 between groups from the Confederates' perspective. So these results can help prove that my third hypothesis, which inferred that participants would have an increase in the display of their presentation skills was actually supported. So let's discuss. While none of my hypotheses were fully supported, my third hypothesis was quite interesting. So self-reported scores did not show that participants believed that they significantly increased their presentation abilities from time 1 to time 2. However, the Blind Confederate thought differently. This could be explained because, as I showed, there was no statistically significant evidence that the self-efficacy levels and presentation anxiety levels differed from time 1 to time 2. So participants truly believed that there was no difference in their presentation abilities because their self-efficacy did not increase. However, when the Blind Confederate was able to see their subconscious gestures, such as better eye contact, using more hand gestures, and speaking more clearly, it actually proved that these individuals actually had a better display of presentations at time 2 compared to time 1. So, since none of my hypotheses were fully supported, it could be explained because of some of the limitations. Some participants had such extreme presentation anxiety that they either read my informed consent and didn't sign up, or participants actually started my experiment and had to drop out because they could no longer continue, which led to a smaller sample size than I would have expected. And then another limitation was distractions, such as people talking during the memorization period, phones going off, which could have impacted the way that they presented. Some students also knew more about their topic when I handed them their ChatGPT script. And so, since I said it didn't need to be repeated verbatim, they just didn't use the script at all, which was completely fine. So they had great eye contact, a lot of gestures, and then in the next meeting, when they got their new script, they didn't know the topic as well, so they had to rely more on the paper, which could have impacted their self-reported rubric ratings. And lastly, I did not receive a notification when all the participants in the verbal persuasion and role modeling, as well as the only verbal persuasion group, viewed the videos that I was sending them. So individuals could have watched each video per day, which would be ideal. However, some people could have watched all 5 videos in one day, which would have defeated the purpose of the mentor program. So despite the limitations of my experiment, my study also shows room for implications for future research. I think it would be interesting to look at the introversion and extroversion levels of individuals and see if role modeling, verbal persuasion, and mentor programs truly has an impact on more introverted individuals, or if extroverts just tend to be better at public speaking and presenting. Another thing that the researchers could look at would be an impact of a longer mentor program. So as I said, mine was only over the span of a week, and my videos were only about a minute to a minute and a half long. And so if there was a longer, more lengthier and in-depth mentor program that was run while still using these 3 factors, I think that it could be a lot more effective. And so, while there are more things that can be studied on this topic, my research and past research can help benefit the future. One way that my research can help is to show the impact that verbal persuasion, role modeling, and mentor programs can have on the display of a presentation, which can help individuals in organizations recognize how to train their members of the organization and help them present better. And once individuals are able to recognize that they can do hard things, present in front of others, and increase their self-efficacy levels, this can help in all aspects of their lives. Thank you.
We do have a couple of minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
I have a question about the mentor program. Was it focused more on self-efficacy, or was it focused on how to present, or what did it make it consist of?
Yeah, so I combined the verbal persuasion and the role modeling and implemented it into a mentor program. So my role model had a script, but she talked about how to present well and gave tips that I found based on research, like what people tend to struggle with when they're presenting. And so while she was verbally explaining that and also telling phrases like, you can do this, good luck on your next presentation, things like that, she was also verbally persuading them and demonstrating how to present well, such as making eye contact, speaking clearly. And so there was kind of a different topic for each day. So there were nonverbal skills, verbal skills that were addressed, and then So yeah, it was kind of just whatever I could find that could help people present better.
Other questions?
Yes.
How would you change the experiment if you were to do it again to limit the limitations you were talking about at the end?
I think having a larger sample size would definitely help. I know that almost everyone suffers from presentation anxiety, so people dropping out is definitely understandable, but I think having a larger sample size could give me more data and help support my 3 hypotheses, because there was research behind those. And then also just having more of a controlled environment. I was in one of the classrooms in CSC, and so there's room for people to just come in and out, or phones going off, because I asked people to silence them, but there's always some sort of distraction. And so I think just having a larger sample size, more controlled environment would help with all of those limitations. Yes.
Tying into Ayush's presentation and his conclusions at the end and what you presented, which thank you both very much. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you.
Do you think that there would be a benefit to having the mentoring in person as opposed to an online mentoring program? I don't know if the research has suggested that.
Yes.
Your
So there's different types of mentoring, which I had researched. There's site-based mentoring, which is what you would be talking about, where you would have an on-site mentor. I definitely think that that would be better for everyone, just because I think that we could ensure that the participants are actually engaged in watching the mentor program. And that was another one of my somewhat limitations, is that I don't really know how in-depth the participants were watching the videos that I was sending them, or if they watched them at all. And so I absolutely think that being in person would help tremendously with my experiment or future research.
Other questions?
Yes.
Since your first 2 hypotheses weren't supported, was it really hard to combat that sort of disappointment? How did you still feel passion for your experiment even though you weren't correct at the end?
Yeah. So I originally wanted to do this topic. Well, I actually told Dr. Bruner that I wasn't sure I should take this class because I wasn't going to graduate school, and he was like, well, you can cater it towards what you want to do in your future, and I want to go into human resources, and you do a lot of training and development with human resources, so I thought of an idea of what a ton of people struggle with, which is presentation anxiety. And so when I found out that my 2 hypotheses weren't supported, but then I found the portion of my 3rd hypothesis I was like, this kind of makes sense. If they didn't have an increase in self-efficacy, or they didn't have a significant decrease in presentation anxiety, they wouldn't necessarily report better skills, because they truly didn't believe that they had done any better. And so I think that at first I kind of didn't know how to read the analysis, but then when I looked into it further, I was like, this kind of does make sense. And so I still think that based on the research that I had found and the research that I did, that role modeling, verbal persuasion, and mentor programs truly would help on a larger scale and more an in-depth mentor program. So I think it was still super interesting to me that I was able to conduct this experiment and help with future research, regardless if my hypotheses weren't fully supported. Yes. I haven't. You guys probably could tell, but yeah, I wish that I would have gone through this mentor program instead of putting it on. But yeah, I had Dr. Perry my freshman year, and I had a huge presentation in her class, and I was super stressed out freshman year. And then I kind of just realized that you have to just present. There's not really a way around it. You're gonna have to talk in front of people in any situation that you're in. And so I kind of just started doing it and doing it more, and once you're exposed to more presentations, you start to get more comfortable. So I guess that's one of the ways I've gotten through it. But
Thank you, Lauren.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren, for that wonderful presentation. I'm Dr. Abby Coates, Professor of Psychology, and we are moving to the time of the ceremony where we get to present our academic awards. So our presenters for these awards are up front. They're just going to kind of come up one at a time. So we're going to start with Heidi Levine.
This morning, I'm presenting awards to students who are first-year members of the Honors Program. The Honors Program is an interdisciplinary program catering to students in virtually every major. If you're a first-year student this year, please keep your eyes peeled. You'll be receiving information shortly about how to apply to join next year if you would like to. Ayush was one of the students with whom it was a great joy to work, and these students make me so proud every day. If you're here and wouldn't mind coming forward when I call your name and then remain standing, I think, is that the way you'd like to do it, Brandon? Okay, for a photo afterward. Cameron Dorth. Okay. Keely Garman.
Stay after too. We'll do more pictures at the end.
V. Lowe. Madison Scott. Isaac Thomas. Cooper Thompson. And Jake Trout. Okay, congratulations to all these students.
All right, good morning. I am presenting today the Cameron and Jesse Day Prize. It is awarded to the graduating senior with a major in biology or biochemistry that has the highest GPA in their major, which would include courses that are in math, so either statistics and calculus, the requisite number of biology courses, a suite of chemistry courses, as well as physics. And this year, that award goes to Michaela Beatty. Is Michaela here? I will give it to Michaela later. She is presenting a poster at 3:30, so stop on by.
The Harmon L. Remmel Prize for Outstanding Thesis in History is named after Harmon L. Remmel III, who graduated from Westminster College with a degree in history in 1965. Remmel was among the 7 Westminster students who gave their lives in Vietnam, and their family established this award in his honor. This year, the department is proud to present the award, the Remmel Prize, to Kirsten Rushing.
Morning, all. Once again, I've got the pleasure of awarding our 2 study abroad scholarships. Westminster offers 2 study abroad scholarships to outstanding students who would benefit from an extended period abroad. I have some certificates signed by our lovely provost and the respective donors of these scholarships. So after I call your name and give a brief spiel about you, if you wouldn't care to come down. First, we have the Cranshaw Scholarship, which this is an annual gift that funds a semester or year of study in the United Kingdom. The recipient for the Cranshaw Scholarship for the 24-25 academic year is Cameron Dorth. She is a museum studies and environmental studies major, and she was accepted to study at Queen's University in Belfast through our Irish American Scholars Program for spring 25. So Cameron, if you wouldn't mind to come down. And next we have the Vernon W. and Marion K. Endowed Scholarship for Study Abroad. This funds students for a semester of study at a higher institution anywhere in Europe. We have 2 recipients this year for the coming academic year. First, we have Timothy Skonecki, who is a history and museum studies major. Tim is going to study at the American University in Rome through our partnered provider, International Studies Abroad, for this coming fall 24. Tim, if you could come down wherever you are. Our next recipient for the Piper Scholarship is Haley Miller. She is a digital media major, and she is going to participate in the incredible Semester at Sea program for fall 24. Haley, if you're in here, would you care to come? There you are. I'm also going to give a very honorable mention to Cesar Merez, a security studies and math major, because he is the recipient of the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship, and this is awarded by the U.S. Department of State with the goal of building relationships, fostering mutual understanding, and representing American culture and values abroad. And Cesar right now is furthering his degree in security studies at Aberystwyth University in Wales. And I would also like to take one moment to thank our members of this year's Study Abroad Scholarship Committee, who graciously devoted their time to reviewing and selecting our recipients. Dr. Joshua Holzer, I don't know if he's in here or not, you don't have to come down. Stacy Gove Ortmeyer, our career counselor and coordinator, and Veronica Tobin, our diversity, equity, and inclusion fellow at the CFS.
Aloha. I'm Dr. James McRae, Chair of the Department of Classics, Philosophy, and Religious Studies. The Robert G. and Ruth H. Herber Scholarship is awarded each year to a rising senior who has demonstrated excellence in the fields of classics, philosophy, or religious studies. Dr. Goodman, Dr. Guinan, and I are pleased to award this year's Herber Scholarship to Eden Stark.
Okay, good morning. It is my honor to present the Dr. Therese A. Miller and Lawrence E. Miller Endowed Health and Exercise Science Award. This is an annual award provided to a Westminster student whose health education, programming, research, and community engagement efforts seek to advance the public health and promote healthy lifestyles. Dr. Therese Miller was a professor and chair of health and exercise science at Westminster College. She still graces our presence today, being in the audience. Thank you so much. And you'll find her. You'll also find her on campus continuing to support students, staff, and faculty, and teaching yoga for our classes. Her passion for research, education, and community outreach programming to promote healthy, active lifestyles was inspired by her mentors, and her, as my mentor, inspires me. And she also had several opportunities to dedicate this work. This award supports the work of students who are dedicated to improving community health, locally or globally, and such work has overarching significance to the whole of society. As Winston Churchill said, healthy citizens are the greatest asset to any country can have. This year's recipient has grown so much during her time at Westminster College. She has had many interests, and when she found that she can put them all together, she was unstoppable. Her energy for learning and helping others over these past 2 years has been contagious and exciting. This award specifically recognizes her research and service to decrease food insecurity in the community and at Westminster College. I am pleased to announce Taylor Miller as this year's recipient. Taylor is majoring in philosophy and religious studies. She has a minor in public health, and after graduation, she's going to pursue her master's in public health at the University of Missouri.
The Margaret McDonald Yeager Psychology Award is given to junior and senior psychology majors each year to recognize outstanding academic achievement. The recipient will have compiled an excellent psychology course GPA and will have demonstrated a strong interest in the discipline through completion of a senior thesis and by involvement in other learning experiences such as conferences and internships. It is an endowed award that is possible due to the generosity of the Yeager family. Dr. Ted Yeager was an esteemed Westminster psychology professor for many years. This year, one of our junior winners is Michael Giles. Michael wants to become a counselor. Currently, he is interning at Spring Health, where he works as a registered behavior technician. He's helping individuals on the autism spectrum through his internship. He's also beginning his thesis work on reducing stereotypes about autism spectrum disorder. He is vice president of Phi Delta Theta and a member of the cross country and track teams. Congratulations, Michael. Our other junior winner is John Stannard. John wants to become a physician and is a double major in psychology and biochemistry. He has worked as a medical scribe at the University of Missouri Orthopedic Institute. He is recruitment chair of Phi Delta Theta, a member of the tennis team, and is also beginning his thesis work. Congratulations, John. The Senior Yeager Award provides funds to help with graduate school expenses. Our senior winner is Rosalind Schneider. Rosalind will be attending Truman State University's Master's in Counseling program. She was selected for our prestigious internship at Fulton State Hospital, where she shadowed the clinical psychologist. She also has worked at Girlstown, where she assesses clients in following their treatment plans. Her senior thesis investigated the role of childhood experiences in predicting college involvement. Congratulations, Rosalind. So congratulations to all of our just announced winners. I do want to remind all of our winners and their faculty members to please stay after for additional pictures. So now it is time to announce a different set of awards. These are the awards for the Undergraduate Scholars Forum Best Papers and Poster. Students, we are grateful to the Stubbs family These wonderful family members are dedicated to providing money awards for these winners who have done excellent work for the Undergraduate Scholars Forum. Make sure you check out all their posters and presentations later today. We also know that it takes a lot of excellence and attention to detail to be able to submit for these awards. So on behalf of the committee, we want to congratulate all of the students who submitted their work for consideration this year. So in the Division of Social Sciences, we have an award for Best Paper entitled Ukraine and Finland, Underdogs and Their Successes Against Foreign Invasion, written by Jake Trout. We'll get his later for him. In the Natural Sciences and Mathematics Division, the Best Poster Presentation, entitled Quantifying Prevotella Bacteria in the Oral Cavity of College Students, goes to the team of Tatum Covey, Lainey Fonk, Kelsey Gordon, and Gunnar Rees. And finally, we have the award for Best Overall Paper, which was this year from the Humanities Division. The title of the paper is The Human Aim to Reach the Divine, as demonstrated by the ancient Greeks and the medieval Christians. Congratulations, Eden Stark. The Committee for the Teaching and Learning would like to thank all the students and faculty for their contributions to this annual event of the Undergraduate Scholars Forum. You are what makes this event spectacular. So as we prepare to conclude this session, I would like to thank some key players in the USF who have worked so diligently behind the scenes to make today a success. Special thanks to our presenters and their dedicated faculty sponsors. Faculty sponsors, please stand if you are sponsoring a student who's presenting today so that you can be recognized for the hard work you put into helping our students. Thank you to the IT team, the marketing and communications team, especially Stephanie Wells and Susie Whitmer, the Teaching and Learning Committee, especially Victoria Knight, who's done all sorts of stuff around the building, student ambassadors who are helping in all the rooms, and the WAT Committee who are troubleshooting any tech issues that arise. Special shout out to Dr. Callie Wright-Smith for putting together a wonderful schedule and program, and to Dr. Mary Majerus for coordinating this day. Today would not be possible without all of these people's diligent work. Deepest thanks go to the Stubbs family for their generous support of the Scholars Forum every year. We are so grateful for your support to scholarly achievements. The Westminster community is grateful to you, but also standing beside you in love and community, honoring the legacy of Dr. Stubbs. Finally, a reminder to all students, thank you for supporting your peers in their work today by attending and being a thoughtful audience. Ask questions as you go to the different presentations, and think about the benefits of having today as this day of learning from each other. This is a hallmark event at our small college that truly provides a big impact. So I now invite everyone, when you go to the sessions today, you can sign in and enjoy and learn from your peers. Again, if you got an award, please stay after. Thank you.